Right. Welcome back, everybody. House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. We are here for not quite a walkthrough. We give every sponsor, bill sponsor, the opportunity to come in and pitch their bill to our committee and just walk us through why they're introducing it and what the key highlights are. And then we get ledge counsel back in if we need a detailed. So we need a detailed walkthrough. Just quickly, since we just came back on live, I'm Rep. Kathleen James from Manchester.
Scott Gamble from St. Johnsbury.
Richard Bailey, Lamoille 2.
Chris Morrow, Weston. Michael Southworth, Caledonia 2.
Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Garrett Corey, Washington 2.
Graham Kleppner, Chittenden 13, Burlington.
Great. And quickly in the room.
Dana Lee Perry, the Crescent Group.
Yeah.
Nathaniel Isley, freelance journalist. Peter Sterling, Rev.
Great.
Isabel from Montgomery Commerce.
Super. All right, let's roll because I don't want to. We do have a hard stop at 4:20 max, so I don't want to cut you guys off.
Great. Well, first, Laura Sevilla, Dover, 2. Nice to see you again. And Scott Beck, good to see you back.
Oh,
sorry. Scott.
Wait, what happened? Anyway, never mind. Okay. Sorry.
So, for the record, Patty McCoy, I represent Rutland 1, serve on Transportation Committee. Thank you very much for having me in today. And Michael Southworth. He and I are the sponsors of this bill. It's a bill that is put forth really by the administration. So I would suggest that you have the Public Service Department members in, Eric Johnson, I'm sure you're familiar with him, as well as Brittany Larrabee. They are the two that will be most familiar with this bill, and feel free to reach out to them at any time. The bill is H601, which is a public service energy, renewable energy, clean energy, nuclear energy, and nuclear storage bill. So it's going to embrace all of those things. It proposes to ensure affordable, reliable, clean energy for Vermonters. The governor is requesting common sense reforms to the renewable energy standard. Accelerated review of the impacts to ratepayers of the renewable energy standard requirement, and removing needless statutory barriers to considering nuclear energy generation. This bill eliminates unnecessary renewable energy credit purchases that mask clean nuclear power that is currently in Vermont's energy portfolio. This approach will generate millions in ratepayer savings and increase transparency regarding cost impacts of existing energy sources while maintaining the same level of greenhouse gas reductions. So just very quickly, the bill will proposes to remove some requirements of the renewable energy by the 2032 standard. And it deals with removing some nuclear statutory barriers as well that are currently in statutes. And I am going to turn it over to Representative Southworth.
So I took a few notes after going through the bill, just to reiterate the renewable energy standard as it is now is wanting to be changed to the clean energy standard. It does not change anything with in-state generation at all. I just want to say that right up front. In-state generation stays the same. What this does change is it allows nuclear energy to count toward our energy savings. Nuclear energy is, greenhouse gas neutral. So this will allow us to use it. It's already in our portfolio. There's 18 to 20% of the energy purchased now from the utilities, which is based from nuclear production. Vermont already has the assets to advance nuclear energy. Siting is present. The infrastructure is present. Regulatory structure is better to advocate for the risk versus reward because it's already in place. All of this is there. It just makes more sense to look at the nuclear piece because it has changed over the years. Technology has changed. The facilities have changed. it makes more sense for us to start looking at that rather than relying on coal generated electricity, gas generated electricity, which we're purchasing from out of state and in-town. The projected savings of approximately $20 million by 2035, with the state being able to do this, changing the res to this clean energy standard.
You might take questions along the way or.
I'm not going to guarantee I have all the answers, but I will do my best.
It is, so that savings would come from.
Being able to count the nuclear portfolio energy now
Yeah,
as a greenhouse gas emissions, because it's greenhouse gas neutral.
and the expense comes from the utilities having to purchase regs, renewable energy credits. To offset the purchase of the nuclear, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So this just relieves the utilities having of that requirement. So the energy they're already purchasing from nukes, from nuclear facilities,
Yeah.
would that they now have to buy regs to make renewables in order to
To be able to be counted to the clean energy
Yeah,
standard.
okay, that's what the change is here.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ralph Sutton?
That
Okay.
answered it. Thank you.
And I just want to, for the record, I have a niece who is, probably mid-30s, who graduated with a degree in engineering and went to work for the Groton nuclear power plant. Actually has 2 patents for the Groton nuclear patent plant. So she really knows nuclear energy. And, anytime I meet with her over and over, she keeps telling me, Aunt Patty, it's the cleanest form of energy that we have. And she's a young person that I look to as our future. And she is all in on nuclear, especially since we think of those huge reactors like Vernon had, but they have now these small modular reactors that are being set up in different areas. They're not the same nuclear power that I grew up knowing, those like 3 Mile Island, and they're much smaller, much more efficient. And look at the maps of Europe. Just Google nuclear power Europe, and you see hundreds of them dotted throughout Europe.
So what this does is,
So this would apply not only to existing purchases, but to future. So
right, so what this does is it opens up the door for Vermont to start actively looking to doing this in some fashion with other states. Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York are already in process and looking at doing this.
at building small nuclear,
They are already in process.
small modular.
Yeah. It just makes sense for Vermont to be able to do that. This is the time to do it. It's not going to happen tomorrow. We're looking at 7 to 8 years out before it actually come to fruition, if that happens.
So,
Is it targeted really? I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Is this really targeted at developing new nuclear facilities using these small nuclear?
That is a piece of it, yes. Yeah.
So it's both things. It's both the existing purchases and developing.
Looking ahead to the
Yeah,
future. Yeah.
Yep, Representative Sedalia?
Do we know how many states currently would allow small modular nuclear?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I do know that, like the state that I mentioned, Connecticut, Mass, New York, they're actively looking at that.
I had a couple questions. We already clarified one question I had. So by opening up the res and expanding that definition to clean and renewable, which is, a lot of the bill, right? I'm just
Yes.
looking at all the
Yep.
language. So that's a lot of the bill. So our utilities that are currently purchasing nuclear power as part of their long-term contract or whatever, that would count, and they would no longer, the savings come from RECs they no longer have to purchase.
Correct.
So, I had a question, this may be more, ledge council, but, on page 16, and if this isn't something you guys can answer, I'll just put a pin in it. But I was curious about the percentages, the total amount of total renewable energy required by this subsection shall be 63%, beginning in 2025, increasing to 60. I didn't know what that section meant.
Going up to 75 and 75%.
So
Correct.
yeah, so that was a question I had. When I read that section, I thought, oh, I wonder if the intent of this section is to dial back the the entire res.
So currently we're
From-
at 63% currently, but we're still going for 100% renewable January 1st of 2030.
It looks like 75%.
That's proposed.
Right. So the current res takes us to 100%. Are you proposing that we knock that back to
If you look at
75%?
the top of the page,
Uh-huh.
reaching 100% on and after January 1st, 2030. See if I'm reading that correct. Okay.
Okay. So I'll just need to understand how that meshes with
And that'd probably be
paragraph
better.
below it. Yeah, that
explained by
sounds like a
the
ledge council.
Yeah.
And then one thing I also wanted to ask about, was one of the things, Rep. McCoy, that you mentioned, was it this, and that was another question I had about the bill. Was it this would remove regulatory barriers to nuclear energy generation
Correct.
in Vermont? So what I hear is that this would make it easier to actually build and site a new nuclear reactor in Vermont.
Well, currently, I don't think we are citing or permitting any nuclear power.
Right.
So,
'Cause-
yes, this would open it up. As Representative Southworth said, Connecticut, New Hampshire,
Connecticut, Mass.
Mass, and New York are already looking into this, so we're pretty much surrounded by it anyway. So this would open up the possibility for Vermont to actually look
Build one.
into the siting and use of these small modular reactors. I'm not talking about another Vernon stuck somewhere. I'm talking about smaller reactors, modular,
Yeah, the SMRs.
the SMRs. Now that I've said it a couple of times, SMRs to be placed and permitted. The permitting process is not going to happen overnight. I mean, how long it takes to get an Act 250 in the state, it's probably gonna be like 7 or 8 years before we even consider or pass permitting for the SMRs. So we have to start, somewhere. Other states are, so.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know, and this is not for you guys, if to explore this idea, I'd be curious to know what we have in place now. I don't know if you're on but anyway, I don't want to put people on the spot. I don't know how it works now. I don't think we have. What do you know?
I don't want to overstate what I know.
Yeah, we'll
So-
get testimony, but
but
okay,
yeah,
I just wanted to make sure I understood the intent.
It's fairly limited scope bill if you look at what it does. And that's kind of the thing that I like about it. It doesn't go all over with changing everything. This is pretty limited scope. It's serious and it's looking ahead to the future for Vermont and the ratepayers.
Sabina?
So do you know, and this is not a trick question, I know this at some point, but I don't have it right here. How many of our utilities currently have nuclear contracts? It's 2 or 3. How many of our utilities currently have nuclear contract?
I don't have it written down. I did see that, but
It's a couple at least.
yeah, they're long-term contracts.
Yeah, the Green Mountain Power.
Yeah, it's long-term.
CDPS used to, which rolled into Green Mountain. They have nuclear.
And I don't know how long those contracts are till. I think they're till like 30,
2035,
yeah.
maybe somewhere around there. But again, Vermont is kind of alone with that because they always do everything with long-term contracts where other states are shorter term.
So as someone who is not opposed to nuclear power and who is really interested in the overall energy transition and how we get there, I think we have to really be thoughtful and thinking about a lot of things at the same time. So we've got these huge, large loads
Yep.
that are emerging with data centers and, Bitcoin and all of this that are competing right now for those existing nuclear contracts. This marketplace is hugely dynamic. And as someone who is from the Windham County area and is on handicap and has done extensive work on the economic recovery from the closure of the power plant, I would just encourage us to be very thoughtful, slow, and careful as we are moving forward in a direction that I also agree is important. Very slow and thoughtful.
Eyes wide open.
Yes, I think there's a lot to be improved from our last foray here. And I think a lot of resistance, at least in my neck of the woods, that will have to be addressed. So thanks for your.
And then, sorry, just
Quick question. So when the utilities buy electricity from the spot market, the ISO New England mix is usually around 20. I just looked it up. It's 22% right now.
18 to 20%. Yeah,
So if that would be included in this.
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
That's right.
Which would equate to ratepayer savings if we change the just get.
Got it.
and just before we move on, there's some sections at the end of the bill. I'm on starting on page 20. That seem to have to do with the storage of nuclear waste. What's allowed, what process there is for creating it. It looks to me like it's proposing the storage of more or new nuclear waste at the Yankee site.
So that's going to be better answered by the public service. That's one piece that I'm not really comfortable with even diving into.
Okay, yeah, because we get toward the end and I'm seeing a lot of stuff about repealing and exempting and changing how we handle nuclear waste. So that makes me nervous. And then it looks like there's a bunch of stuff repealed around how we expand our natural gas facilities. So I don't know if that's pipelines or what. Is that a Carrick question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I could say more than likely it probably is pipelines, but I'm not 100% sure on.
Okay. So, great. It's 4:20. Representative McCoy, thank you so much for coming in early. Representative Southworth, thanks to the two of you for presenting